Hello guys, hope you are doing fine today. I wanted to do a video showing you how we can holster our weapon when we unequip it. So you can see that when I unequip it, it's there on my left hip. Um, in another video, I'm also going to show you how to do it as well for two-handed weapons and put them on your back. But yeah, I will split this into two videos, otherwise it will get way too large. This is also multiplayer replicated, so if you have a multiplayer game, yeah, it's also going to work. So let's get started, right? I'm starting in a brand new project here. The only thing that I did was add the ability to unequip the weapon. So by default, Lyra does not have this. It's actually not hard to implement. You have a great tutorial by NanceDev. I will link it in the description. But once you have that, you're pretty much ready to go. Um, so to start out, let's go to our hero shooter mannequin. And so first thing is that I will be implementing this already here in the shooter mannequin event graph, but you can do it in like a component. For example, I think it would make sense also to put it in the pawn cosmetics component, since, well, when we unequip a weapon, it becomes a cosmetic in our body. So, but for today and for to make things simpler, I'm going to do it here in our event graph for the shooter mannequin. So the first thing that we need to do is actually listen for a gameplay message for when we want to, well, we need to know when a character changes their weapon, right? So we need to listen for that. And I'm actually going to make this sequence so it just looks a bit tighter. Um, I am not going to spend too much time actually routing the notes, making sure they're straight and looking fancy and pretty. You can do that on your game. You can take your time to do that. But for time, I'm not gonna do that. So apologies in advance if it all looks a bit confusing, but it should get the idea across. So we need to listen for the active index changed channel, or hook into the active index changed channel. This will have a payload type of active index changed message. And what we want to do is actually uh, we want to run it only in the server. And if we are in the server, then yes, listen for that gameplay message. And I'm going to split this payload right here. So we have a payload owner. This should be a controller, a Lyra controller, and we have the payload active index. This is the new index, or the weapon that you just equipped. So let's say you have a pistol and you equip a rifle. The new index will be the index of the rifle. So when we receive the message, actually the first thing that we want to do is get a reference to ourselves, so to our shooter mannequin, and we actually want to get our controller. Uh, sorry, uh, get Lyra controller, get Lyra player controller. We don't need a ref here. We don't need a reference to ourselves, and we want to compare the controller of the payload owner to ourselves, because we only want to do this when they both match. Otherwise, for example, let's say you unequip your weapon, it goes to your hip. It would also show up, for example, if you have a multiplayer game and you are playing with a friend, your unequipped weapon would also show up on your friend's hip. Now that would be funny, but that's not exactly what we want, right? So we know that this owner is a controller, so let's cast it to a Lyra controller. also we want to do this when the message is received, not on the normal execution. So once we have both of these, we can compare them. And if they are indeed the same, we want to, well, to do the actual updating uh, of our cosmetic components. So I'm going to create a new function called update cosmetic weapons, and the input is going to be a we're gonna have a controller here, Lyra controller, Lyra player controller. We're gonna have an object reference to the Lyra player controller. I'm going to call it controller. With two L's, sorry, I can't spell today, neither can I type apparently. So compile, so just now we can get this. So yeah, and also, of course, get the controller. Doesn't really matter if we get this one or this one, because, well, if we're only doing something, if they're equal, yeah, doesn't really matter. So I'm gonna try and take you step by step on how we might start thinking about this, and not just going to show you the results, because it teaches you how you could on your own do this and reason about this. So the first thing that we actually want to do is, let's keep it simple for now. So when we unequip our weapon, we want to show it in our character. So we need a way to access the weapon that we are trying to unequip, or I mean that we're trying to put on our hip. So show it as a cosmetic. We're also going to need a Quickbar component. We're going to need access to it. So I'm gonna add it as an input, and I am going so B Quickbar component, get object reference, and from the player controller we're going to get component by class, and we're going to get the B, not Q, B Quickbar component, and once we have it, we're also gonna pass it in. So this is a B Quickbar component object reference. This is a Lyra player control. No, that's not what we want. So we want a Quickbar Lyra B Quickbar component. Yeah, I don't know why that was still on Lyra. So yeah. So compile. Let's just make sure that we are getting what we need. So I'm gonna get the display name, print. You don't need to do this. I just want to make sure that it's working. So compile and play. So you can see there when I change my weapon, we get the name of our Quickbar on the top left. So yeah, that's great. Because of that, that means we're also successfully getting our player controller, and that we're only running this when the payload controller and our controller is the same. So yeah, so exactly what we want. So the first thing that we want to do, as I mentioned, is show our pistol on our hip when, well, let's take it by steps. So also, we're gonna need another input for that. It's going to be the new index. So what we just equipped. This is an integer, and for some reason it's taking 2 clicks for me to actually select. And oops, not here in the event graph. We're going to need this to hook up this. Now I'm just pulling it straight across, like I told you. You can take your time and actually reroute them all pretty and all of that, but for this tutorial, I'm not gonna do that. So let's start simple. So on our Quickbar, we're gonna get the slots, and once we have the slots, so we're going to the slots array. For now, let's just get the first one, which should be the pistol, since we spawn with the pistol anyway. And once we have this, this is going to be we need the actual fragment, and this is going to be an inventory fragment pickup icon. And from this, we have a reference to the skeletal mesh of the weapon that we have equipped. So once we have this skeletal mesh, we want to spawn a cosmetic weapon, so a fake weapon to show on our character. To do that, we're going to need to create it. So like I said, I don't know if I mentioned at the beginning, but I'm doing all this on the Shooter Core plugin. I highly recommend you to do this on your own plugin. So if you are building a game on top of Lyra, you should be doing it as a new game feature. So you add a new game feature. But for this tutorial, I'm doing it directly on the Shooter Core just for simplicity. So here in the blueprint, we're going to add a new blueprint class. Sorry, I forgot how to speak for a moment. We can use just a normal actor. I am going to call it the cosmetic weapon. And for this cosmetic weapon, well, we need a skeletal mesh to assign to it. And here in the event graph, when we begin play, we actually want to set this skeletal mesh asset. So this is the one that we want to set, and the new mesh is going to be, well, let's promote it to a variable. Yeah, we can call it new mesh. When with this variable selected, you want to make sure this is instance editable and expose on spawn. And also on our class defaults for this cosmetic weapon, we want to make sure it replicates. So it replicates on multiplayer. So that should be pretty much all we need in the cosmetic weapon actor. So I'm gonna save, compile, close, and here we want to spawn actor from class, and this class is going to be our cosmetic weapon. So I'm going to split this struct spin because this way we don't need to pass in a default transform. Now, because we exposed the instance, we get this new mesh here. So we just pass to it. And so now this is spawned. We need to attach it to our mannequin. So let's attach actor to component, and we're gonna attach what to what. So we're gonna attach the cosmetic weapon, so target, to what? Parent. The parent will be our own mesh, skeletal mesh of our character. Now, we need to attach it to a socket, because if you do it right now, it's not going to attach it to any socket. So it's going to look a bit funny. Let's try it. So you can see, well, for now we already have it spawning, but we're gonna take care of that. But you can see it's on my feet. It's not exactly what we want, right? So let's create a socket to put this, well, our weapon in. So I'm gonna go here to the mesh, scroll down. So we are using this invisible skeletal mesh. I'm gonna double click it. I'm gonna click this SK mannequin button, and here I'm going to add the socket that we want, where we want to attach our pistol. Now, you can choose whatever bone makes the most sense for you. I'm just gonna put it here in the thigh on the left side. Why on the left side? Well, in this particular case, I'm putting it on the left side because if you notice, when you equip your weapon, the animation has the character picking up the weapon from the left. So that's the only reason why I'm putting it on the left right now. So we're gonna right click, add socket, and this socket, I'm gonna rename it to be easier to remember in the future. So I'm gonna call it hip left or hip weapon L for left. So let's save this and well, this one we can close, but we will come back to this one. And here in the socket name to attach, we want to attach it to our hip weapon L for left. So let me compile this, save, and let's see what happens right now. So you can see it's attached to our hip, kind of. So we need to actually change the position and orientation of our socket. So I'm gonna unhook from the player controller. So I press F8. So yeah, if you see, press F8, you can detach from the player controller. I'm gonna move our camera so we can actually see. And I'm gonna pull this out so I can see it at the same time. And okay, let's me try to make it a bit bigger so you can see it better. So I'm gonna select this, and let's position it correctly. So I'm not gonna take too much time doing this, but you can take your time and make it perfect and however you want. I'm just gonna try to get a rough idea. So let's rotate it as well on this. So 90 degrees. Let's rotate it a bit. And is it good? Yeah, it's good enough. So now, great. We have our weapon on our hip. Now, right now, it's spawning as soon as we spawn. So we need to know uh, when to actually attach and detach things to our character. So to do that, first I'm going to just clean this up a bit. So this part, I'm going to collapse it into a function. So right click, collapse to function. This function, I'm going to call it get weapon data, for example. And after get weapon data, this function, I'm actually going to collapse this into a function called spawn and attach cosmetic weapon. Well, this is starting to get a bit big title, but yeah. So we only want to spawn the weapon when we need to spawn it when we unequip it, if that makes sense. So we need a way to know when we are equipping a new weapon or when we are unequipping the weapon, we need to get a reference to what that last weapon that we had active was. So we don't want the new index. We don't want the weapon that we are just equipping. We want the weapon that we just had equipped. Now, to get a reference to that, we need a variable, of course. And I'm going to add a variable called last active index. This is, well, an integer. And I'm just going to compile it so we can give a default value to it. This default value is going to be -1. Now, why -1? If you followed NanceDev diary, there, when we have no weapon unequipped, we are actually going to make this -1. So when we have nothing equipped, this is -1. And to test this, or to make it easier for us, it's actually better if we don't spawn with any weapon at all. So to do that, here in our shooter mannequin, in the class defaults, we scroll down a bit and we come to this initial inventory items, and we don't want this. So we don't want this initial inventory item, so we can remove it. And let's compile, save. Now we shouldn't spawn with any weapon. Yeah, correct. Now, for you, you might not have the correct animations for when you spawn unarmed. This is a bug with default Lyra. It's really simple to fix and should take you around 3-4 minutes to fix this. Xist has a great tutorial on this as well. I will link it in the description. But when you come back, so you will be able to spawn without any weapons, and this will make it easier for us to do this. So when we spawn without any weapons, the first time the new index, so this is gonna get run when we spawn. So if we spawn with a pistol, this is gonna get run the first time, and the new index is gonna be the index for that pistol. If we spawn without any weapons, this new index is gonna be the -1 that we defined. So right now we need to have a way to know if so the first time that we run this, if the new index that we have, actually if the last thing that we had, so if we just unequipped something, I hope this makes sense to you, but if we just unequipped something, let's say you have a pistol, or okay, how can I explain it? So the last thing that we had equipped, we need to check if it was our hands, so if it was nothing. So if it was nothing, we don't want to put nothing on our hips, so that nothing would show up anyway, right? So we want to know if this is less than 0, so the -1 that we defined. Again, remember, if you defined, when you unequip something, if you defined a different number following Nance's tutorial, for example, I don't know, -999 or 999, yeah, take that into consideration here. But if this is less than 0, it means that we unequipped, so the last active index, we unequipped our hand, let's say, so we don't want to put it in our hip. And we also need of a way to update this. So actually, I just did something wrong here. It's false. So we want to do things if we unequipped something other than our hands. If we did, well, let's just update this one. So we need to always know what was the last thing that we had running this. So this is gonna be the end when we run this, and the branches to true. This is gonna be the end. So let's update the last active index. So we can just grab it, set. So if it is true, this last active index is gonna be the new index. So I just grab it from here. And at the end here, we also need to do that. So let's grab this, set, and plug it here. Now, you can just grab it all the way there, but you don't need to. You also don't need to make this a local variable, because when you are inside a function, I have access to these inputs at all times. So I can just grab from it and write get new index, and you see we have access to it here. So it makes things at least a bit clearer. So now, for us, right now it shouldn't really make any difference because we are spawning without any weapon anyway. So, but when we pick up a weapon and we unequip it, you see now that it's there on our hip. So if you equip it back again, you will see that it still stays there on our hip. So we need to change that as well. So how do we do that? Well, the first thing that we want to do is uh, when we when we run this update cosmetic weapons, we actually want to remove or clear the last one or the one that we are equipping, right? Because think about it, when we run this with the new index, so let's say we have the pistol in our hip and we have uh, our hands equipped, so nothing equipped. When this runs, this well the hand here is going to be the hands, the index for the hands, and the last active index is going to be the pistol. But when we equip the pistol, so we go from our hands to our pistol, this new index is going to be the pistol, and the last active index is going to be the hands. So we're gonna add a custom event here in our event graph. So custom event called, let's say, clear cosmetic weapon. And we need to know what cosmetic weapon we want to clear. Now, to know which cosmetic weapon we want to clear, we need a reference to whatever cosmetic weapons we have already spawned. So first, let me just put this input so I don't forget it. So I'm going to call it index to clear, and to get a hold of the cosmetic weapons that we have already spawned and attached, let's go into our spawn and attach cosmetic weapon function. And this is okay. And after we spawn our cosmetic weapon, we actually want to hold it, we want to put it into a variable that makes it easy for us to know, okay, we have these weapons spawned, so then we can reference them when we need to despawn or destroy them. So I'm going to add a new variable called cosmetic weapons, and this you have many ways to do this. I prefer to do it as a map. So I'm going to have a map where the key is the index number, integer, and the value is going to be our cosmetic weapon. So cosmetic weapon, B cosmetic weapon, and we want an actual object reference. So I'm going to get it, and I'm going to add it. So utilities map add, and let me just hook this into there. And well, I'm trying not to care too much about this, so I don't want to take too much time. So we want to add to our cosmetic weapon, well, the cosmetic weapon that we just spawned, and the key is going to be the thing that we so the weapon that we are actually spawning in our attached cosmetic weapon. So for that, what we actually need is the last active index here. So this is going to be the last active index. So when we compile, now we have a way of knowing what cosmetic weapons we already have. So this here, I am going to get a reference to it, and I am going to not get, but remove. Well, we're gonna need to remove it later, but for now we actually want a reference to it. So let's also get a reference to it and get find. So we want to find the index weapon, and in this case we actually want to check if we did find it or not, so just to make things consistent and not try to find or remove things that don't exist. Well, they should exist anyway, but so if we do find it, we want to destroy it, so destroy actor. So true, yes, and we want to remove it from our variable. So now that this cosmetic weapon no longer exists, so we remove it from our variable as well. Now let's press compile and play. Now when we get our weapon, yeah, fine, we unequip it, it's there on our hip, we equip it, and it's actually still there on our hip. Now why is that? Because I forgot to call this custom event, or yeah, that's the first thing that we want to do. So clear cosmetic weapon here, and we want what what cosmetic weapon do we want to clear? Well, we actually want to clear the thing that we just equipped. So if we go, so if we have the pistol at our hip and we equip the pistol, we want that pistol to be gone from our cosmetic weapons, because now it's equipped in our hands. So we want to clear this new index, we want to clear it. Now, like I told you, I'm gonna try not to care too much about if it looks nice or not or confusing, but you take your time. So compile, save, now, there you go. So we unequip it, we equip it, and it's gone from our hip. Now, this is pretty much it for if you only had pistols in your game, because you might notice a few things start to break down when we get other weapons. So if I get my rifle and I change to my pistol, nothing really happens right now, because there's a few reasons, but the first reason is that when we are getting our weapon data, you see here that we are actually always getting the 0th component. Well, this fix is pretty simple. We can actually make sure we get the last active index, so the thing that we are trying to add to our hip in this case. And now something pretty funny should happen, which is if we change from our rifle to our pistol, you're gonna see that our rifle goes to our hip. Now, in the next video, I am going to show you guys how we can differentiate between weapon categories. So know if a weapon is one-handed and put it in our hip, and know if it is two-handed and put it in our back. And one thing that I also want to make fixed already in this video is that if you notice, when we die, wow, I am invincible for some reason, but when we die, I need to check why I'm invincible. I think I was messing with something before, but when we die, we need to clear these cosmetic weapons. So this is also pretty simple for us to do. Here in the functions, I am going to override our death function. So when we die, we want to just get rid of all the cosmetic weapons that we have. So let's to do that, here in our event graph, let's actually add a second custom event called clear all cosmetic weapons. Wow, I actually want a custom event called clear all cosmetic weapons. And for here, we don't actually need any input because we want to clear them all. So let's get the reference to our cosmetic weapons. And so small tip is you can call destroy actor. You can call destroy actor on an array directly. So let's get the values for our map. And once we have these values, we can just call destroy directly on the array, and it will destroy all the objects that we had in our array. So you might see some people actually then looping on the array, and then on each array element they call the destroy actor with that array element, and then on complete blah blah. But this is a small tip for you. Yeah, you can call it directly on the array. And after we destroy all the cosmetic weapon references that we have, we actually want to clear this array, right? So let's get a reference to it again, and let's just call clear on it. Okay. So now, when we die, our our death function, we actually want to call that. So clear all cosmetic weapons. All right. So I have no idea why I'm not dying right now, but trust me, if you die and you have things unequipped, um, if you don't add that to your death, your weapons will float in the air when you die. So we want to actually remove that. So next video, yeah, I'm going to show you guys again how we can expand on this and actually take into consideration the different kinds of weapons that we have. And yeah, see you next time, guys. Hope you liked it. Bye.